What is my final ranking for the Cup favorites, Cup threats, playoff teams, playoff bubble teams, and those looking for the Connor Bedard lottery sweepstakes? We have already walked through all four divisions in our rankings there. Time to mush them all together and consolidate them across the entirety of the NHL. So stick with me through this video till the end, and I will tier rank all 32 teams as the way Coach Ryan D sees it going into the NHL season for 2022-2023. Lists are always fun. They're always controversial. They always get great comments down below. Let's not hold it back and get going right now. Our list is going to comprise 5 tiers. We're going to take a look at the Cup favorites and the Cup threats. These are elite teams and very, very elite teams. All teams in these tiers can definitely win the Stanley Cup this year. Playoff teams obviously have a chance at the Stanley Cup because they've made the playoffs. They're just a tier break below the first two. We have the playoff bubble teams, the teams that could surprise us, or things could go their way if they catch an upswing, an updraft, or injuries occur to teams in front of them. And then finally, the Bedard sweepstakes, those teams that look like they're purposely either trying to tank or likely should be tanking this year based on the composition of their roster. Every team that's in the tier can be ordered in any order. You can sell me on any order of any team in this tier. They're all very good. That's why we do tier rankings. As we go front to back and back to front, I do have them ranked from 32 to 1, but tier rankings mean that honestly, if somebody's 32 and somebody's 31, or somebody is 1 and somebody's 2, you can flip them really, really easy. That is the magic of hockey and sports. Opening up our first tier is the draft lottery, the Bedard sweepstakes winners. In order, I think the 32nd team in the NHL is going to be the Arizona Coyotes, followed by the Chicago Blackhawks, the Montreal Canadiens, the Buffalo Sabres, the Seattle Kraken, and the Philadelphia Flyers. These guys can be ordered in any way you see them ordered. This is the way I see them ordered in the lottery sweepstakes. All of these teams should have a fair chance at tanking for a top 3 pick in the NHL draft this year. I just don't see any single one of them with any future potential to move up outside of the Seattle Kraken. They could end up surprising and becoming a little bit more than a bottom feeding team, especially if their 2 top draft picks, Matty Beniers and Shane Wright, make the roster this year and explode out of the gate on their rookie season. Very possible when you have players that talented for Seattle. Montreal, I'd love to put higher because of their rebuild. Price was playing this year. They would definitely be up a tier, maybe even 2. Their rebuild is aggressive. They're trying to go fast because it's an impatient fan base, but at the end of the day, goaltending is going to be a problem for them. We know Chicago and Arizona are both purposely trying to tank, and Buffalo, I really want to move this team up a tier because they're doing things the right way, but Buffalo has a history of 2 things: great fans and prides in their sports team, and unfortunately the Buffalo Sabres not getting the rebuild right. They have yet to have gotten a rebuild right in the franchise's last 11, 15 years. It's been a long time since they've been in the playoffs. So let's hope this is finally the rebuild that gets Sabres fans what they deserve, which is a team on the rise. So I'd really like to move them up this year. Just can't yet. Before we move on to our bubble teams, give me a big thumbs up, hit the notification bell down below, and subscribe for me. It's all free. We'd love to have you here on this channel. Coach Ryan D loves seeing all the comments you leave down below. Good, bad, and different emojis, chirpy or complimentary. All comments are welcome down below. If you want to get a hold of Coach Ryan D, Discord's the best place to do it. Also, a big shout out to our members on the coaches staff down below if you want to hit that join button and support our channel. Now we pull up the bubble teams. Inevitably, 2 or 3 of these teams are going to end up making the playoffs because that's the way hockey goes, but I do see all of these teams tiered together, starting with the San Jose Sharks, then the Columbus Blue Jackets, the New Jersey Devils, the Anaheim Ducks, the Vegas Golden Knights, my Winnipeg Jets, the Detroit Red Wings, and the New York Islanders. I think the Red Wings and the Islanders are the 2 most credible to move up a tier this year and make the playoffs. They have decent rosters that can do some damage. I'd love to see the Jets do some work under new coach Rick Bowness, and he is definitely making some big changes, including stripping Captain Blake Wheeler of his seat. There's talent on the roster, but I don't think there is talent like there is in the playoff teams or above. The Vegas Golden Knights are surprising to be here, but I think the team culture and I think injuries on the team, especially to players like Mark Stone and Robin Lehner, are going to really hold them back this year. Jack Eichel be damned. Anaheim Ducks are one of my favorite sweetheart teams games this year with Mason McTavish, Trevor Zegras, and Jamie Drysdale leaving the youth movement over there along with their buddy Troy Terry. I'd love to see them move up because they're just an exciting team to watch, but I still have them as a bubble team. The New Jersey Devils, similar to the Ducks, have all the talent in the world, especially with their two top centers in Nico Hischier and Jack Hughes. I also love what's going on in the back end there, led by Dougie Hamilton, but I just don't think they have the goaltending to do it. The Columbus Blue Jackets, the Johnny Gaudreau lottery winners, they have a couple good players, but Gaudreau plays a totally different style game than his line mates up there on the top. Boone Jenner, Patrick Laine are not nearly as good in the transition as Johnny Gaudreau is, and when you lose a big-time center like Elias Lindholm, I think we're going to see a regression from Johnny Hockey this year, although he'll still be one of the NHL's premier players in the top 20. The San Jose Sharks, again, even with Timo Meier there on their roster and Erik Karlsson, I don't see them having enough horses to get out of there, but they are a bubble team and stranger things have happened. Tell me, what do you think about this tier down below? Moving up to the playoff teams, any one of these teams can definitely end up winning the Stanley Cup, and you might start counting teams going, you have too many teams in the playoffs here, Coach Ryan D. I understand, I get it, but you know what? I just do it by tier breaking. I don't do it by math because even the 17th team is usually pretty close. So any one of these teams deserves to be in this tier, and it starts off with the Nashville Predators, UC Saros, Roman Josi, and Philip Forsberg. This team could make some noise. They're a lot of people's surprise pick this year, but at the end of the day, they don't have enough horses compared to the guys in the top. Ottawa Senators rebuild is over. The question is, can the youth movement, the kids, and the veteran presence of guys like Claude Giroux and even newly acquired Alex DeBrincat end up moving this team up enough? I think they could. It's all going to come down to goaltending, though, and Cam Talbot in Ottawa. Not a fan of Talbot, but you never know there. You got the Orcas of the Vancouver Canucks under Bruce Boudreau. I always thought they had enough horses last year to make the playoffs. They just had a terrible start, and I think coaching makes all the difference for this team. Dallas Stars and Jake Ottinger. Jake Ottinger is looking like he's ready to break out as one of the elite goalies in the NHL. If that happens this year, the line of Pavelski, Hintz, and Robertson is going to be tough enough to deal with. Sure, they lose John Klingberg, but this is a team that is definitely primed and ready for the playoffs and going to be a better playoff team than they were last year. The Washington Capitals are always a threat to the Stanley Cup, but unfortunately losing out on Tom Wilson and Nicholas Backstrom is going to be tough for this team. Both those guys are out with injury. The question is, will Backstrom return in time to help carry the Washington Capitals into the playoffs, or will he have to retire due to his hip surgery? Tom Wilson's torn ACL. We know he'll be back, but it takes a little bit of time before you get confident and ready to go. Regardless, the Washington Capitals bolster a really nice roster with the newly acquired Darcy Kemper and always elite John Carlson and Alexander Ovechkin. They can threaten the playoffs and they can threaten the cup. The LA Kings under Jonathan Quick has shown he is not done yet. The Kings are an absolute monster of a team. They have a lot of great players in front of them. They're just playing in a very tough division. So I like the Kings. They can threaten for a cup. They've got a few youth guys on there, especially in Sean Jersey and Iafallo. The question will be, will they be healthy enough going into the playoffs this year? Because that injury to Drew Doughty last year and Mikey Anderson just killed them when they played the Oilers, but they pushed the Oilers to 7. The Minnesota Wild are a team with no holes. They have one of the deepest forward cores out there. The big question here is, Marc-Andre Fleury going to return to premier playoff Fleury? He's one of the winningest goalies in the NHL in the playoffs in history. If they do, this team could be argued to be up a tier, but right now, I really kept those top 2 tiers tight, and Boston is another example of a team that could be up a tier, but I'm just keeping them here. It's the injuries to Grzelcyk, McAvoy, and Marchand that hold them back. Boston could actually end up getting jumped by division rivals like the Ottawa Senators this year due to those injuries. Yes, you got Krejci and Bergeron back for one last run, but a new coach and injuries to 3 of your best players leaves this team a little bit in doubt. This is our tier for the playoffs. Let me know down below. Now moving into cup threats. These are teams that can threaten to win the cup very easily, in my opinion. You'd love to put them up into the cup favorite discussion, but this is where the fan bases are going to get really heated and fired up. We're going to go ahead and start it off with the St. Louis Blues. The Blues are one of the teams that could actually push the Colorado Avalanche out of their first place position this year. Don't write off the Blues. If Jordan Binnington is back and in full form, this team could be nasty to deal with. They're big, they're tough, they have 7 great defensemen back there, and up front with Robert Thomas and Jordan Kyrou getting new deals, this team can be deadly. I follow that up with the New York Rangers. The Rangers have only gotten better since last year, especially adding Vincent Trocheck there. Their top 4 defense is well known in Condré Miller, Jacob Trouba, newly minted captain. Then we're taking a look at Adam Fox and Ryan Lindgren. What a top 4. When you have the number 1 goalie in the NHL in Igor Shesterkin, sure, it could be Vasilevsky, but I'm saying Shesterkin this year. This team is always a threat, so I really like the Rangers heading into this year. Pittsburgh Penguins have no holes. The only hole the Penguins have is age. Age comes injury. If the Penguins are injured going into the playoffs, it's going to be a problem. We saw that when Crosby, Jari, and DeSmith were out last year. They definitely could have beaten the Rangers last year if they were healthy, but that is the game that we're playing here. You got to stay healthy. It's a battle of attrition. So if the Pittsburgh Penguins go into the playoffs healthy, look at them to threaten the Stanley Cup. I only put them down a tier because you never know what's going to happen with the NHL's oldest team. Then we have the Battle of Alberta. Both the Flames and the Oilers could also be up a tier along with the Pittsburgh Penguins. These are very deep teams in Alberta. I love the defensive depth of the Calgary Flames. Jacob Markstrom is a competent enough goalie, and I like what I see up front with Elias Lindholm, Jonathan Huberdeau, and Tyler Toffoli leading the way. Their lineup down the middle is amazing. When you take a look at Lindholm, Kadri, and Backlund, that is 3 really deep centers to play with over there in Calgary. They also have one of the best coaches in the NHL in Daryl Sutter. So tactically, this team should be above the Edmonton Oilers, but they can't be because the Edmonton Oilers have had their number in the playoffs. The Oilers have 2 of the best players in the world in Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. They have a lovely top 4 defense that is now going to have Evan Bouchard joining them back there, Cody Ceci. If Darnell Nurse is healthy this year, he was injured badly going into the playoffs, and that really cost them. $9 million defenseman not able to play. Good luck. You're not really going to win a cup if one of the big 3 players is out this year. If you lose Draisaitl, McDavid, or Nurse, it is going to be very challenging, if not impossible, for Edmonton to win a cup. And I don't say that because they're shallow. They are not shallow this year. They have a very deep roster. But when any team loses one of their best 3 or 4 players heading into the playoffs, just ask the Maple Leafs when they lost John Tavares 2 years ago. It's nearly impossible to recover with the parity that you have in the NHL this year. So if they can go in with a healthy Nurse, Draisaitl, and McDavid, I love what they're doing. If Jack Campbell gets hot at the right time, and he showed against Tampa Bay last year that he can stick in there when he needs to be, then this team can go as far as this team wants to go and even win the Stanley Cup. They have Jacob Markstrom's number. They are elite teams. This tier can absolutely have any team out of it winning a Stanley Cup. You let me know what you think about the Cup threats. That moves us into the Elite 5, the Cup favorites. I have the Florida Panthers, the Toronto Maple Leafs. Yes, the Toronto Maple Leafs. We'll talk about them in a second. I have the Colorado Avalanche. I have the Carolina Hurricanes, and I still have the Tampa Bay Lightning as the number 1 team in the NHL this year. I know I'm super boring, but 3 appearances in the Stanley Cup Finals and a roster that only lost minimal impact players. Ryan McDonough was not the same player last year that he was in years past. Mikhail Sergachev is ready to stand up and take a bigger role. You still have a crazy elite defender in Victor Hedman. This team plays the right way. They block shots. They play for each other. You've got Braden Point healthy and ready to come back. Remember, like I said, if you lose a top 3 player, it's very difficult, if not impossible, to win a cup. They didn't have Point last year. Yes, Colorado was down a lot of elite players as well too, and that's the name of the game. But when you lose a top 3, it's different. Steven Stamkos feels like he's only getting better as a goal scorer, so I do have this team number 1 and on top. Then we take a look at the Carolina Hurricanes. There's no holes on this team either. They bring in a couple veterans like Brent Burns, like Paul Stastny, and that's going to join the youth movement of Seth Jarvis, Sebastian Aho, and a lot of elite players here on this roster. The key to the Carolina Hurricanes is Freddie Anderson being healthy for playoffs. Again, top 3 player goes down, and Anderson's a top 3 player for this team. Going to be very hard to win. So Carolina did great last year with Antti Ranta in net, and even he was injured and had to be pulled out for a minute there. If they can go in with healthy goalies, healthy defensemen, and healthy forwards, this team under Rod Brindamore, who may be the best coach in the NHL right now, can definitely make some noise. The Colorado Avalanche slip in my rankings. I don't have them as 1 this year. They've lost too many players, in my opinion, to be ranked as 1, but they're still a damn elite team, and they can win back-to-back cups. When you boast Cale Makar, who is arguably the best player in the world, I still have McDavid, but Makar is making a case to take that over for me. I don't see as large of a gap as some don't as some see in that one. I think Makar is literally millimeters away from Connor McDavid in terms of being the best player on the planet. He's got a partner in Devon Toews, who is a top 5 defenseman in the NHL in his own right. He is that good. Do not sleep on Toews and think he's a product of Makar. He's his own guy. He is very elite back there. And then you've got McKinnon, who just got a new deal. You have Landeskog and you have Mikko Rantanen. And again, a top 5 winger, a top 5 center, a top 5 defenseman. That's elite. The only hole I see on this team is depth at center and goaltending. I understand Frankie and Georgie back there have a lot of potential. They have a lot of hope. People really want to cheer for these guys. I love them both. They've shown that they can do it, but they are not elite goaltenders like you have in Vasilevsky and Freddie Anderson. They're good enough to win a Stanley Cup, though. The Toronto Maple Leafs, the team that can never get out of the first round and everyone keeps putting them on the top. But when you're in a murderer's row division like Toronto is right now, it's difficult. They took the Tampa Bay Lightning to 7 games last year, and they were a goal away from being able to move on in the playoffs. Still a hyper elite team with a top 3 player on their squad in Austin Matthews. Mitch Marner, always a threat on this team, a top 5 winger in his own right there with Mikko Rantanen, in my opinion, defenseman in Morgan Rielly, and this defensive core as a whole, and the Calgary Flames. I think those are the 2 best defensive cores in the NHL right now, and Toronto is competing for that 1-2 spot with their top 6, especially with the fact that Timothy Liljegren has stepped up so huge for this team. So I love what I'm seeing in the top 9 from the team. I like the depth. I always like the moves that Kyle Dubas makes. I think he hits more than he misses. The big question is going to be Matt Murray, but that is insulated right now by Samsonov. Samsonov could end up stealing the number 1 job here, and if they get some magic out of either a returning Matt Murray or Samsonov, this could be the team to beat. They're going to be the number 1 team in the NHL in goals again this year. Bank that, write it down, come back, comment later. They're going to be a top 2 team in power play minutes this year. Their penalty kill got a lot better last year. This team is a threat if it gets out of the first round. Finally, the Florida Panthers and newly acquired Matthew Tkachuk are going to try to do some damage under Coach Paul Maurice. Here's the big question. You have a new coach. You lose Huberdeau, you lose Weegar, but you bring in Tkachuk. This team's got a lot of questions it's going to need to answer, but it needs to answer them in the playoffs, not in the regular season. We know they can score. Coach Paul Maurice, we know he can rebuild a team. We know he can take a team that's middling and make them a playoff contender, but he's never won the Stanley Cup at the NHL level, and neither of the Florida Panthers. This could be a match made in heaven where we see 2 firsts if they end up winning the Cup this year. But did this team lose more than they gained? I actually like them better with Matthew Tkachuk than I do with Jonathan Huberdeau. I think he's got more sandpaper. I think he's a better defensive forward. I think he's going to explode and play really, really well with Alexander Barkov on that first line. Losing Mackenzie Weegar is tough, but you still have a great defensive core back there led by Aaron Ekblad. So there you have it, team. My consolidated rankings of all 32 NHL teams after we went through our journey of divisional rankings. Hey, thank you for being here on this one. We're going to go ahead and continue the off-season content later on this week. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think about these rankings right now. Let me know your own rankings down below. I'll try to take a read and respond to as many as I can right now. And if you'd like a more in-depth analysis on your team, go ahead, take a look at this channel after you've subscribed and look at our 4-part series of divisional rankings and find your team. You'll get a nice 5-minute explanation as to where your team sits in the division and why Coach Ryan D has them ranked the way I have them ranked, and a great roster breakdown as well too.